Viktor Frankl and, parents who meditated every day and they spent time learning yoga and qigong and taking walks in nature and devoting themselves to the world. So I grew up with a very deep sense of soulful connection, and it's infused my life in every possible way. And there's a conversation that has happened in my world over time, especially in the realm of Chinese medicine. And that conversation is about this notion that, there's this, many of us can imagine like this bigness of where we come from, this source of everything. It's big. It's so big you can't comprehend it, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but like if I tune into that bigness, I'm aware that it is vast beyond vast. And sometimes it can be like, what's my role in that? And why are we talking about this when we're talking about healing? Because to be body led, we have to understand or develop a relationship with the divinity within me. Because otherwise, my body is a random collection of cells. If I don't have a divinity related connection, then I will take science's explanation of my being, which is simply that it was an evolutionary woohoo that we got to the point where we went from being this just another, like a lower level version to this level. And that's fine for people who that feels like right and true and just to them. Awesome. But the complexity of our being is so miraculous that I can't help but know that there is a wisdom there that is way beyond this random association of cells that eventually formed this version of human, of which I'm one example. So I abide by this knowingness that there is this vastness. And that vastness, in my view, is desiring an experience. And sometimes I wonder if the vastness asked the question, would I remember that I am connected to this infinite nature, that there's abundance and beauty and potentiality all around me if I take a little drop of self and put it in this container? That's how I view it. That God, the divine source, the Tao, took a drop of self and put it inside of me. And that drop is a microcosm of the totality of what's available. And that drop is what animates, informs, and directs life in this body. That it's the ultimate form of intelligence, the ultimate connection, the ultimate reunification force present within me. It's that has changed so much about how I view healing, because so if I'm made by this divine inspiration with a drop of that infinite source within me, then I have all of what's needed here. All the wisdom, all the mechanisms, they're in place. And the access to how to harness them is in place. So therefore, to me, I would never consider that this body, this divine creation, is broken. I consider it a non-remembering, because the truth is, I know at the deepest part of me that I am from that essence. So if this body is failing, let's say you have a thyroid problem or an autoimmune problem, and science says, well, this random conglomeration of cells that just arrived out of evolution, it's got some flaws. kind of funky sometimes. And so we have to take our superior intelligence to that of the body, and we have to apply that superior intelligence through aggressive diagnosis and aggressive treatment to make that body behave and to stop the aberrant expression. Okay, sometimes that model really works, or at least appears to work, right? We want that model to come to our rescue if we need, surgery or a bone to be set. Those are beautiful things, and I greatly appreciate them. I always have, and it serves a purpose. But when it comes to things like autoimmune disease, that model starts to get shaky to me, because that model says, well, we don't know why. We don't know why everything has gone sideways. Really? That's always been my thing. Do we really not know? Do we really not have a clue why everything has gone sideways? Why the body's in such chaos? Or could it be that the body is trying to continually put us forward to our greatest development, our greatest path, our greatest expression? And being humans, living in this human world with other humans, and we're all learning how to be humans constantly. Could it be that, emotion and trauma and toxicity has made us begin to forget that we are that infinite creation, that we have an unlimited capacity for change and healing, that it is our responsibility to cultivate a relationship with that infinite within us, that maybe that's what adulthood is that it's the chance to move back to a state of childlike wonder, take all of the learning that we've gathered up until then and integrate it in and resume a state of wholeness that includes all the nuances of humankind, the funky parts and the awesome parts all together, because nothing is made that isn't part of that one source. Nothing here, nothing about me is technically able to be separate from God, except my consciousness can make me believe that I am indeed separate. And in the separation of my consciousness, I begin to think, much like the medical system espouses, that it's all random, that calamity is around the corner, that I'm definitely not enough unless I hit certain benchmarks or have certain criteria, that I am unworthy or I'm a failure, or, or any number of judgments that I could lob at myself as much as others might lob them at me. But that is what I consider the forgetting. I actually think personally that all illness is us forgetting our inherent infinite potential nature that is always connected via the drop of the infinite that was placed inside of each of us. That's what really is us. That's who we are. And that the mere notion that I would consider myself to be separate is an illusion. But the way that belief works is that what I believe makes a vast influence on the movement of matter. My favorite studies are the ones from, particle physics that show my attention focused on the movement of particles is going to influence the movement of particles. Because, and here's what I believe, because I have this drop of God within me, because I am connected to the infinite, because I was blessed with the gift of that connection, the blessed with the infinite. Not that I am God. I do not have the powers of God. I do not have that. I'm not saying that, because a lot of people then extrapolate that to say, well, I am. I don't believe that personally. I believe that I'm blessed with an interactive interface. And that interactive interface is why when a human focuses consciousness on particles and consciously imagines them moving to the right, they move to the right. Because we have the interface. And so the same thing is true in our body. And you look at the way that medicine talks about the body, and you look at how So many doctors, and I'm talking natural and otherwise. I'm talking massage therapist. I'm talking functional medicine. I'm talking Chinese medicine. I've been in medicine for decades. I can tell you that just because someone knows natural therapeutics does not mean that they believe in your infinite nature, nor does it mean that they believe in the power of your body to change. Because the schooling for all of those paths focuses on the pathology over the potentiality. So, unless someone has consciously moved themselves into the space of potentiality over pathology, it's going to lead the lens of how they view you. We see this happening in so many arms of medicine, this desperate obsession to identify exactly how the brokenness is, and then to corral it and control it into submission. But do we need to do that? Like, do we need to try to corral and control everything into submission? I don't actually think we do. I actually think that that drives us further away. And if it doesn't make us physically ill, I feel like for a lot of people, it makes them feel like if they don't exist in a modicum of extreme control, that everything's going to go sideways. And so it might lead to hyper focus of the mind, of emotions, of the heart, of actions. I've seen this a lot. I've known so many healers who were obsessed with food, just not able to eat anywhere other than their own house, not able to handle adversity at all, can barely travel because the pillows aren't right and the rooms are used with the wrong cleaning products, and the carpeting in the place is off-gassing and making them uncomfortable. If there's even the hint of mildew, they can't be in the space. I get all of those experiences, but that to me always tells me that this person lives with such control that they have a belief system that says the minute I exit this amount of control, I'm going to be spun out. And I believe that that is deeply entrenched in the way that society works and in the way that we talk about health as a loss of structural control, as a loss of order, and that it is our job in healing to maintain and resume order. But what if it's not? What if our job is to remember that there's an infinite, flexible energy available to us, and that if opened and invoked, we would have great capacity to handle adversity? When I was in med school, there was a woman attending who could not be in a room with anyone who had on any fragrance, including essential oils. And the room, it went from that to being the rooms now feel toxic. And it went from that to being you can't even have newspaper in the room because the newspaper is toxic. And it was like her world, I watched her world get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And I wondered to myself, even back then, where does that go? What drives that experience? And is there something else here beyond reactions to chemical components? Over my years in medicine, my now answer to that is yes, there's something major in there, and that is separation. The more separate, it's like our essence gets compressed into a tiny little spot. Maybe it's over in your right shoulder, and it's in this tiny little spot in your right shoulder, and the rest of you is kind of random at that point. That drop of God is still existing inside you, but it's layered under so many layers of stuff that we've collected, the stories and the medical literature and the modern thought about food and the body and the world and the air and the EMFs and the need to ground and the toxicity in the water, and there's this and that and and now we are so spun out and we feel so out of control and so separate that we are just the aliveness of us is compressed into this tiny little corner. Now that we're no longer filling out the being, what's there? What's there to direct order and cohesiveness? What's there to direct collusion? What's there to foster a relationship? What's there to partner with your pathways? What's there to fuel detoxification? There isn't. And so then it's no wonder that then we start to see, oh, now everybody has an MTHFR mutation. Everybody has detoxification dysfunction. Everybody has inflammation. Everybody has reactionary tendencies. Why? Is it the world or is it our separateness? Well, if it's the world, I'm up against it. That's been one of the things fueling me over the years. If I feel like I have to change the entire world for me to feel safe enough to heal, I don't know about you. I don't want the responsibility of all of that. And I know it's an impossible task. I am not going to be able to just by myself go make, some companies stop putting PFAS in the water. It's a reality. But if my vitality is robust, I will become much less reactionary. And this is a fact I've seen play out clinically over and over and over. People who used to not be able to walk down the detergent aisle are like, what detergent aisle? It doesn't affect me. People who used to say, oh, because of my MTHFR gene mutation, I can't detoxify, are detoxifying effortlessly. And they're not even doing things specifically to support the MTHFR pathway. How is that possible? Because they did the process of remembering. Their vitality is expanded, and in it, they have a connection to the body as a miracle. And in it, they're connecting to the wisdom of that drop of God inside of them. And now they're feeling possible. That's the difference. So, do we need to chase down every nuance or tap into possibility? That's the question that leads me. And there are stages in healing. There are times before we have this connection lit up where we have to do a lot more physically to support the being. We have to do a lot more remedies. We have to do a lot more actions. We do have to finesse food. But my intent is that it doesn't stop there. So we don't, like many people, stop there. This is what you have to do for the rest of your life. Okay, that's boring. So instead, I'm looking at it and saying, well, okay, so that's a beginning stage of healing. And many people just stay at the beginning. Most practitioners only know the beginning. But if we foster a relationship and we clear the things that have us hooked to these belief patterns and these fears and the sense of the world and the story that has us separate and the story that has us unworthy and the story that has our body flawed, if we can unhook from that, and let our aliveness blossom, then we also can have a much more infinite relationship with the world. I used to feel like I was affected by EMF. Doesn't have much effect on me anymore. I used to feel like, I couldn't eat certain foods. They would disrupt my sleep. That's just not a factor. I used to feel like I had to constantly be dealing with inflammation or quieting it or, doing things to stave it off because it would create migraines or headaches. It's not a thing. Same thing with bloating and digestion. Not a thing. I just traveled to go to a retreat and I ate all kinds of foods that I don't normally eat and I was totally fine. Didn't gain weight, didn't have sleep disruption, didn't have digestive disruption. Why? Because I partner with that infinite nature. My body and the wisdom within effortlessly led me to what was the path of ease. And I just said yes. To me, that is the life-altering potential of that truly body-led thing, is to step out of this constant control and monitoring and step in to the infinite relationship open. And so what I often have people do when they begin this connection process is just simply start to pay attention. It's just that. It's just noticing. It's just learning to hear the language, to feel the sensations, and to notice what beliefs are coming up as you go through the day. Because if you're in a belief pattern of like, oh no, a big cue is like someone who says to me, oh no, I always have this experience, or if I don't do X, Y always happens. Those are beliefs, just notice them. The process of shifting this is the journey The journey itself is magical because along each step of the way, we begin to feel more and more like ourselves, which is exciting and enticing, and life starts to take on new meaning. But to connect to that, we have to first be able to see, oh, interesting, I have been over here. I have been believing in a flawed version of my body. I have been believing in a limited version of me, and step into, wow, what would happen if there was an infinite body connection available, like literally an oracle presence, informing and directing and providing me with insight that I can trust. What would that be like? What would it be like to feel free, that you could travel and you knew you'd be fine? You don't need to have rigidity around your food. You don't have to bring all your own food. You don't have to try to avoid certain oils over other oils, because they're causing this and they're causing that. What if you could trust? What if you knew what it meant to regulate yourself? What if you knew what it meant and what your body's key hallmarks are and how to provide those to her? What would that be like? What if you didn't believe any longer in the premise that you necessarily must age, decline, and experience body failure unless you are so on guard and on top of it? What would that do in your life? Those are the questions I invite you to consider. Those are the kind of questions that have led me to where I'm at now. Those questions began popping in a long time ago, more than 10 years ago. And each time I asked them, the relationship grew, and then it grew, and then it grew. And now I'm at a place where I have complete faith and trust. I am totally at ease. Things are able to flow. I am not burdened. And it just keeps getting better. But this is the step. We have to get curious. And we have to start to ask ourselves, do I believe in that infinite? What does it feel like to me to think of this infinite taking a drop of self and putting it into me? And then I get to come alive as that expansive vitality that comes from that wisdom that is effortlessly housed within me. For me, it was reassuring to walk forward from that place. Maybe it will be for you. I don't know. But I invite you to consider that and to take time with yourself daily. Foster that relationship. It's so worth it. And it's bigger than you could ever imagine. I look forward to joining you next time. Blessings.